Hello, my name is Rebecca Villanueva. I work for the Office of Student Success as a tutor for math. In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve a matrix using Gaussian Elimination method. So in here, we are given two equations where we have our x's, our y's, and our number. We actually want our numbers to be aligned to each other. In order to solve this, we can go ahead and change our equations to a matrix. When using matrix, we only use our coefficients. In our first equation, we have negative 25 minus 3 and negative 41. In our second equation, we're going to use 10, 1, and 17. Even though they don't tell you 1, it's being here, it's understood to be 1, our coefficient. This line will be representing our equal sign. So this is our matrix, and our final answer, we want to make sure it's in this format. 1, 0, 0, 1 equal, and this will be our x value and our y value. This will be our final solution. So in our final solution, we want to make sure first to start with 0, and then we'll work with our second 0. So in order to solve using our final equation, we're going to first work with 0, and then we're going to solve for our second 0. In order to have our two zeros, we need to have the same number in that same column, and one for it to be positive and one to be negative, in order to have our 0 solution. So in order to have this equal to 0, we're going to go ahead and multiply this by 25, the number on top of it, and this number by 10, in order for them to have the same number. In here, we have a negative times a positive, which will be a negative, and a positive times a positive will be a positive. This is actually what we want, a negative and a positive, in order for them to cancel. So in here, we can start doing our math. We're going to go ahead and multiply 10 and negative 25, which is negative 250. 10 and negative 3, which is negative 30. 10 and negative 41 gives us 410. And then we're going to do the second row. 25 times 10, which is 250. 1 and 25 gives us 25. And 17, 25 will give us 425. So before we continue, since we're changing this 0, we only change a row at a time. That means this row will stay the same. Having that, we know our first row is going to stay the same. And our second row, our numbers are going to come when we are adding these numbers. So the first number, we have negative 250 plus 250, which will give us 0. If our solution is not 0, that means we did something wrong in our multiplication. Next, we have negative 30 and 25, which will give us negative 5, negative 410, and 425, which will give us 15. After we solve for this 0, our next number will be this number to change to 0. Since we're solving these two columns, we're going to go ahead and multiply this by 5 and this one by 3 in order to have 15, our same number. We notice that here we have a negative and a positive, which will give us a negative, and a negative and a positive will give us also a negative. This won't be able to cancel. So in order to cancel them, one of them has to be negative for them to be positive, and they will be able to cancel. Again, we're going to go ahead and multiply 5 and 25, which will give us 125. Negative 5 and negative 3, which will give us 15. Negative 5 and a negative 41 will give us a positive 205. Our next row will be 0 and 3, which will give us 0. Negative 5 and 3, negative 15. And 15 and 3 will give us 45. Since we're changing this value, that means this row will not change. So our new matrix will be the same. 0, -5, and 15. And our numbers will come after we add these two numbers. So 125 plus 0 gives us 125. 15 minus 15 equals 0. And 205 plus 45 will give us 250. Now that we have our zeros, our next step will be to solve for 1 and 1. So for our last step, since we want 125 to become 1, if we divide it by itself, will give us that 1 that we're looking for. As well as this -5, we're going to divide itself by -5. Since we're dividing this number, that means we're going to divide this whole row by -5. As well on the top, we're trying to solve for 125, and we're going to divide the whole row by 125. So our new matrix will be something like this. 125 divided by 125, 1. 0 divided by 125, 0. 250 divided by 125, 2. Our next row, 0 divided by -5, 0. -5 divided by -5 will give us our +1. And 15 divided by -5 will give us our -3. This will be our x value and our y value. Now that we solve for x and y, we can go ahead and write it as 2, -3. Our answer will be in an order pair. Well, this will be our x and this will be our y. For future references and for other kind of problems, if your matrix is equal to 0, 0, and a number, this will mean you will have no solution. If your answer is 0, 0, 0, that means you'll have a infinite solutions. That will also be included for x's if it's on your y or your z row as well. Thank you very much. My name was Rebecca Villanueva, and I work for the Office of Student Success as a tutor for math. Thank you.